Hi friends, it's Kim at Foggy Bonnet. I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these scrappy cards today. I am working on a series about how to use patterned papers, and this was a card that I featured a few times just in photographs because I think it's a good example of how we can match different patterns and come up with really cute cards. This technique was introduced several months ago. Actually, it was in January, I think, by a couple in Australia, and it's really been popular. If you look on Pinterest, you see all kinds of examples, and a lot of them have a lot of scraps in them, and they're beautiful. I chose to make mine with just 6 scraps. I like to keep things simple. So I came up with a little formula that I use every time I make one of these, and I might get brave someday and venture into more pieces, but for now I really like the results with this method that I use, and that's what I'm going to show you today. I'll show you a couple of other examples. So I've made a few of these, and I have fun every time I do it. Honestly, I think I don't know, they're just fun to do. So let's get started. I'll tell you what you need to start with. You're going to need a 5.5 by 4 1/4 card base. I'm using Whisper White today. Okay. You'll need a 5 3/8 by 4 1/8 piece of black cardstock, and then one that's just slightly smaller. It's 5 1/4 by 4. Okay, you'll see how this works as we move along, but you need both of these. Okay, so we'll get this out of the way for now. Then you need some coordinating papers, and this is where I know I have struggled in the past with this, and many of the people I hear from tell me the same thing. They struggle with matching papers. And to be perfectly honest, I stopped struggling when I started using Stampin' Up! Papers because they're coordinated. The products are coordinated. But I'll tell you the method that I use for picking papers for this particular scrappy card. The first thing I do is I select a floral or a pattern that is my foundation piece. And in this card, the foundation piece was this. This was from Lily Impressions paper. After I have my foundation piece, I then select some coordinating colors. And I'm going to want 3 other coordinating colors. So for this one, I chose this paper, this one, and this one. And they work because this color is the same color as this in this rose. It's called Lively Lipstick. These papers, by the way, are from the Best Dressed pack. It is retiring, I believe, but that's where these are from. And then this is from the 6x6 Designer Series paper. And anytime I can work gingham into a card, I do. I'm all about the gingham. And it has the same yellow that's in this card, or I'm sorry, in this flower, daffodil yellow. And this green is one of the greens in here. So they all work together because when Stampin' Up! Uses this color, this Lively Lipstick, on one pattern, it's the same that they use on another pattern. Okay, so they coordinate. You can see the backs are just as pretty as the fronts. All right, so those are the colors, the patterns I chose, and I try to keep it with a lively pattern, and then the rest of them read more solid. Like these still have patterns in them, but they read a little more solid than this one. Okay, and that helps keep the floral or the patterned one kind of like the highlight, I guess you say. So all right, and I cut these in about 2 by 4 1/2 approximately. I'm not exact, but if you cut them 2 by 4 1/2, you'll be fine. So you need one of each color. So you have 4 colors total. You have your anchor pattern and then 3 coordinating, I call them solids, or 3 other coordinating papers to go with your anchor pattern. All right. So once you've got those selected, you start cutting them. And I'm going to use my little guillotine trimmer. I got this when I signed up to become a Stampin' Up! Demo. And I love it. They don't have it available right now for purchase, but you can use any trimmer that you have. And what you're going to do is you're just going to cut these papers, these strips, these little rectangles, at an angle, and there is absolutely no rhyme or reason here. There's no measurement. You just cut it at an angle, okay? Just like that. And then you end up with 2 pieces of that. And then you go to the next one, and I'm going to kind of go in order that I know I'm going to use these on the card. Yep. You don't get too fussy, you just cut. And then this one, hope everybody can see me okay and that I'm not going off camera. I'm kind of a novice at this whole Facebook Live thing. My daughter's been helping me, and that's been nice. I love having her here. Alright, one more to cut. Okay, so I set that aside. So I have my pieces cut, and I'm just going to lay them out so you can see how they correspond to this card. So you see I have this. I might actually use this one. It's a little bit bigger. Then I'll have this, and then this corresponds to this. Can you see how it's working? And then I repeat the pattern again. All right, and then I have my wild card. I call it my wild card. It's kind of a zinger that I put in. I'm going to turn it this way. And when you have a pattern that has an obvious vertical in it, you can fudge around with it if you like to try to make it sit so that the vertical reads vertical or horizontal. I may or may not fuss with that when we get to gluing that one down. We'll see. I don't mind it being a little slanted. Okay, so I check everything out, make sure I like how everything's looking, and there we have it. You notice I call this just my anchor solid, if you will, and I bookend the front of the card with it. It's here and then it's here, and I like how it kind of closes off the card with that darker shade. So there we go. So I'm pretty happy with that, so I think we're going to start gluing these down. And we're going to glue these onto the smaller of the 2 pieces of black. Because after we glue these down, you see how they're going to hang off a little bit? We're going to trim these, and then we're going to mount the whole thing to this one so that we have a border around. That's how we get these nice clean edges, okay? So we're going to use the smaller of the 2 pieces of black. And I'm going to use my handy dandy silicone mat from Stampin' Up! I love this because the glue doesn't stick to it. And when I'm doing this, for some reason, I always get glue where I shouldn't. And then I make sticky spots on my paper that I'm working on. So I'm going to put my silicone mat down. And this first one, I'm going to take advantage of the corner because then I won't have to trim it. I just take advantage of that square corner. So I'm going to get my liquid glue, Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. That's what I use for this, because then you can adjust things as you go when you use the liquid glue. Put a little glue on. That looks like more than a little, Kim. That's okay. You don't need a lot. This is not heavy-duty stuff we're doing here. So I put it on, line it up. There we go. So there's your first piece on. You're on your way. See, I told you I get glue everywhere. Okay. So that's on. So then we go to our next piece, and I'm referring to my little sheet off camera here because I wanted to put these in a certain order. So the next one we're going to put on we want it to be just slightly away from the first piece, so we have a peak of black between there. And what that does is it helps the paper pop a little bit. You can see the black lines between these? It really helps these colors pop. I love that. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to put a little glue on here. I think what it is I don't move the glue container fast enough and I get piles of glue. I need to work on that. Okay, so, and we're not being exact here. We're not looking for perfection. Don't stress about perfection, because you know what? When your card is all done, I don't think people really see the little imperfections like maybe you do because you made the card. So just go for it. All right, so now we have 2 pieces on and more glue. All right, so my next color is going to be this lipstick, lively lipstick, and it's going to go here. And I love how it pops against the green. Okay, so it's going to go there. And at this point, what I usually do to make sure I'm on track is I test the remaining papers. So my next piece is going to be the floral again. I don't know if you can see this. See, I used the pattern there. And then my zinger will go here. And yeah, that's probably going to need to be narrowed down a little bit so I have room for the last one. Yep. So I'll be cutting this one down, I think. Yeah. Yep. Excuse me while I talk to myself. Okay, so that goes there. Yeah, I'll just trim this one down when I get to it, and that way the last 2 pieces will fit just fine. And I might trim this one a bit. So, all right, moving on. Actually, I'm going to turn that one. Okay, and again, I'm just leaving that little sliver of black between. Okay. And then my next one is my floral. Right here. Yeah. I might cut that floral just a sliver. Nah, gonna leave it. I don't know. It's always kind of a surprise at the end how it's going to turn out, but we'll see where we go. All right, then that piece. Yeah, so I am going to cut this one down, and it's going to give me an opportunity to make it just a little bit more vertical on the card, which I like that. So I'm going to bring in my little trimmer. And cut some off. Maybe some off the other side. Yeah, that's going to allow, it's not as vertical as I might like it, but that's going to allow me, sorry, am I off camera for you guys? Oh. Let me get everything back over here, but it's going, oh, there we go. Yeah. Yep, that works. So I'm going to trim just a tiny bit more off and try not to make a lot of noise this time. This clearly is not an exact science, but it works. There we go. All right, so I'm going to glue this piece down. How did I have that? I had it this way. Yep. Okay, and again, I'm remembering to leave that little sliver of black in there. And you can see how all of these are hanging off the edge, and we're going to go in and trim those as soon as we're done gluing down. So this last piece, I don't have to worry about trimming. I just need to make sure I cover, because I'm going to trim it after it's glued down from the back. Okay, so get that on. That's my bookend. Kind of closes off the card visually. And I don't want glue everywhere, just actually let me do it this way. There we go. That kind of squeezed out from the back. And I can just set that aside and this will come right off. So I love that little mat. Okay, so now I'm just going to give this a second to dry. And while I give it a second to dry, I'm going to talk about the sentiment that I chose for this card. I'll move this to the side. I did a happy birthday sentiment from the Peaceful Moments set, and I cut it out with this is the Label Me Fancy punch. Okay, anytime you can use a punch, it saves so much time. These make wonderful sentiment pieces. I just love it. And you can punch a hole in it if you want. I decided not to. I didn't want a hole in this one because I'm actually going to use a piece of ribbon where I have this black cardstock on this card. Okay, so that's my sentiment piece. And you can make your sentiment whatever you want, of course. All right, so that's what I'm going to do there. Okay, let's check this. How are you doing? Are you drying? Whoops. Yeah, it's a little tacky, but I'm going to go ahead and trim those extra pieces off the back. You can use paper snips to do this. I'm going to use my handy dandy little trimmer. And I turn it over so I can see what I'm doing on the back of the card. And I just use the edge of the black as a guide to know where to cut. And there we go. So you see how that worked? I have a clean edge there. Now I'm going to, first I'm going to get rid of some of this extra glue. Yeah. Now I'm going to just trim these pieces. It does get a little messy if you're like me and you have glue squeeze out, but you can always clean up your trimmer. So now we have that edge. You see how that's cleaning it up? And then I have another side to do here. And trim. So let's see what we have. Oh, I love that. When I'm making these, it's always, I get a little anxious. I'm like, oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But then I get to the finished front and I think, wow, it worked. I love it. These just make me so happy. I love the mix of patterns. So the next step here is just to mount this on the bigger piece of black cardstock. And that gives you the matte look, okay? See how that works? Oh, I just love that. I love how these colors are popping. This might be my new favorite. For a long time, this one was, but I think it just got replaced. I am loving this combination. So, all right. So I'm going to use liquid glue again, just so I can move this around a little bit if I need to when I get it on the mat. And there we go. I hope you guys are still with me. I just had an error message from my internet. I think I got disconnected momentarily, but hopefully you're still there. I'm not as experienced with this as I will be someday, but right now I'm not able to like look at messages and stuff while I'm making a card. Anyway, so there's that, and then the next thing I'm gonna do, let me check messages real quick. I think we might still be together. Hopefully I'm still broadcasting. So the next thing I'm gonna do is wrap this with a little bit of ribbon before I put it on the card front, and I just went with the green, and of course it's olive green, and it is the exact green that's in this and in here. I know it's going to coordinate, okay? So just snip off a piece, make sure I have enough. And I'm just going to place it. If you've been reading my series on how to work with pattern paper, you might have seen the last post I did on that about using the rule of thirds. Well, guess what? I'm going to use the rule of thirds right here. And I'm going to place this ribbon about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. Okay, and you notice I'm not getting a ruler out. No, eyeball it. It's okay. And I love using glue dots to put ribbon on. Took me a while to get used to using these things, but man, I love them now. I really do. So I just put one there. And another one on the other side. Try not to get it stuck on my finger. There we go. All right. And that way I can just fold this around to the back and press, and it stays where I put it. And I look at the front of the card when I'm doing this just to eyeball it to kind of make sure it's somewhat, know what I mean? Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's there. And then remember our sentiment. Actually, I'm going to wait and put the sentiment on after the card first. So now I'm going to mount it to the card, and my card is horizontal. And when I mount these kind of elements to a card front, I like to open the card so it lays flat. Then I feel like I have a little more control. I'm probably going to watch this later and say, Kim, you have no control. Oh gosh. Okay. So there we go. And then just trust your eye, kind of line it up to get it centered pretty much. There we go. Great. I'm liking this card. I hope you like it too. I hope you'll try this, really. Once you get going with it, you'll see it's not that difficult. It takes a little time. I think for most of us, the biggest challenge is picking out those papers, like I said, but once you get them picked out, yeah, so that'll go there. And I wanted to pop that up on dimensionals, and I think I didn't bring them out, so I'm going to wait on that. I am going to put a cute little button on it, like that. What do you think? I think it may be over there. Maybe 2 buttons? I don't know. I'll play with that. But I want to pop this sentiment up on dimensionals, and I didn't bring them to my table. So I will do that later, and then I'll post this card after I get done fiddling and wondering where to put I think the button might look cute there. Yeah, I think that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial on your maybe on your morning coffee break, and I will see you again soon. Thank you so much for stopping in.